I'm making the new stringers out of this 2-inch rough cut cypress. I have a lot of it. It's not the strongest wood in the world, but it is fairly rot resistant, and I have it. But the wood I have is not good wood. It's number 2 and it's rough. So to deal with that, I rip it up and re-glue it to make lamination. So here's one with my being clamped up. This one has been clamped but not planed, and these are the two that have been clamped and planed, and that will be the guide for the rest of the floor. You can see where I've stepped back the end because they won't reach from front of the boat to the back of the boat. So what I'll do is I know each one is 12 inches, so when I go to build the rest of the stringer and slide it in the front, I'll just mirror image this. They'll fit together, and I'll glue them and screw them together. This is a side view of the stringers. I just glued it together a second ago. This is not the middle stringer, but the one on each side, and it needs to be 12 inches in the deepest part. So spent several hours this morning grinding off the 2 outermost stringers, and then I brought in the stringer that I made, the first one, and I thought I was going to use the original stringer as a pattern, but when we cut it loose on the boat, it turned into a banana, so it's no use to me. So what I did was I bought my stringer in here and I clamped it to the only support that was there, which is the back of the engine stringer, and I have it wedged against these little cross blocks that we left in place, so it's pretty stable. And then I put a straight edge. You can see the straight edge here, it's laying flat, and I put it across the 3 remaining stringers in different places, and they're not the same. I averaged them until I got the top of my new stringer uniformly 1 1/4 inch higher than the 3 existing stringers. And it was a compromise because they're different no matter where you put the little stick. They go up and down. They're pretty crappy. So when I had it uniformly 1 1/4 inch all the way, the top, and the top is flat, and that's what we want the floor. Then I cut a 1-inch block and a 3-inch block, and I scribed the curve of the floor with a 1-inch block on the bottom of the new stringer until I had a problem up front. I didn't make my stringer deep enough. It's too high off the floor. So what I did was I switched to the 3-inch block and scribed a 3-inch line. Now I'll take this back in the shop. I'll cut the 1-inch line wherever it still is intact at the bevel to match the floor, and when I run out of wood, I'll have to glue another piece on the bottom, which is no problem, and then I can measure down off of that 3-inch line. I can measure down 2 inches and cut the curve, and should be it. Should fit. And then I'll transfer this one to the other stringer, which is identical, that I made, so that at least both sides will match. The top will be flat. It may not be perfectly flat fore and aft because I don't know how the boat's going to float, but it can't be off more than 1 inch on this big old room, so I'm okay with that. So that's step 1, marking the first stringer. Okay, first stringer is cut and fits pretty good. Fits pretty good. I had to lower the hull underneath because they had a hump in it. I just knocked the brace down a little bit. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to cut the other one, mirror image, the one that goes on this side. I'm going to round the bottom edges and glass it, and then come put it in place. Pretty happy with that. Sorry about the shaky camera. This is laying out the second pair of stringers. The first pair are in. They're caulked down. They haven't been glassed down yet, but they're very rigid, and I can walk around the boat without it bouncing so much right now. So the first of the second pair, I laid it in place, got it roughly parallel with the other one, just looking at it, and I came up with I needed to raise my straight edge 2 3/4 inches. This is an arbitrary measurement. So you can see the white straight edge. Sorry about the thing bouncing. Sitting on a block, it's 2 3/4. This one's 2 3/4. At the far end, I also have a couple that are 2 3/4. And then the new stringer, I shimmed it up till it just touched the straight edge. So I know that the top of the new stringer is 2 3/4 higher than the top of the existing 2 stringers that I just put in. So all I'm going to do is take a 2 3/4 inch block and run it along the bottom of the boat and scribe the bottom edge of the stringer, and that should give me a fairly accurate cut. Unfortunately, I didn't make my beam deep enough, so as I got up toward the front of the boat, you can see the line at the bottom petered out, and I'm going to have to add some more wood, which is no big deal. But rather than add the wood and then bring it back in the boat and then re-scribe it, I went ahead and jumped up to 5 3/4 and scribed the line. So after I add some more wood to the bottom of the beam, I'll just come down 3 inches from that line and cut it, and I should be good. That will save me one time of getting these heavy beams in and out of the boat. But other than that, number 1, or this would be number 3, looks pretty good. Okay, put the second stringer of the second pair in place, blocked it up like the first one, 2 3/4 inches above its final resting place. Scribed the mark, and it ran out of lumber pretty much adjacent to where the first one did. They're about 3/8 of an inch difference, so the dang bottom's not that flat, the fiberglass, so I'm pretty happy with that. Looks like we have no major issues with the hull or the floor going to be straight. I think it's going to be good. So we'll take them out, cut them with a skill saw, around the corners with the router, and glass the bottom, and then come bring them and put them in. But first, I'll have to add on to the bottoms because I didn't make them big enough. They need about 3 inches more up here in the front. That's not hard. So the second pair of stringers are cut, fit, beveled, and they're straight with the straight edge. Now that I'm thinking about it, I probably should have cut them a little more, because after I put the glass on the bottom, they're going to bump up a little bit. But I'm not glassing the tops of any of them until everything's complete, so I can run my electric hand planer and level everything out. But they come out, they're in pretty good shape. So I just don't have any laminating resin, or I would be laminating the cloth on the bottom of them right now. I'll go get some in the morning. Okay, we got the second set of stringers on the horses ready to fiberglass the bottom half. I'm working solo here, so once I get started, I won't be able to do any video. These are the limber holes, and I pretty much copied the limber holes from the originals, but I think these would be more than adequate. There shouldn't be that much water going. Of course, it is ventilation, so I don't know. This go round, I clamped the stringers to the sawhorses, because the last time we tumped one over, fell in the dirt, and you can only imagine what it looked like after that. Using some chop mat I had, it's kind of heavy, but I'm going to use it up. Bought a bunch of rosin in 5-gallon buckets, and I decanted some of that into a smaller container just to make it easier. I actually have a measuring cup, and I have the little measuring cup from NyQuil, so I can actually get the right ratio, 2%. I'll start out with that and can adjust it accordingly. This is it. You can see in the stringer, it's pretty straight, most of its length, but then at the end, it goes up. Oh, I'm sorry about this shaking. You can see at the end it goes up, which is in the boat it goes down, because there's a deeper spot toward the middle of the boat. It has a belly, and that's why I had to add on to the laminations more than what I thought I was going to have to put. You can see I've stepped the top, so when I continue on, I'll have some strength where the back part of the stringer ties into the stringer heading toward the front of the boat. So here we go. I'm going to keep the camera, phone, well clear, because this stuff is nasty. Okay, it's about 2 hours later, and I've got a coat of heavy chopped mat on all the bottoms of these two partial stringers, and I got a coat of some lighter material on 2 of the blocks that I have ready to go. It's nasty work. It is nasty work, but this should be the worst of it. The center stringer is just as long, but there's just one of those, and then when I get to the front of the boat, none of them are quite this big, so this should be the worst of putting the bottoms on. Okay, so the 2 outside stringers are set in caulk. I haven't glassed them down yet, but they're set. They're very secure, all the way back to the engine room. At first, I was really concerned about making them run continuously under this bulkhead, but the original ones didn't. They were just glassed together. And I'm gonna make this bulkhead much thicker than it used to be to keep the generator noise down. So I'm okay with this. We're gonna put some good glass on them when we get the engines out, when I can get the area clean, and I'm gonna call that good. Pulled out the center stringer yesterday, like hours and hours and hours of grinding. And a funny thing, the stringer, or the hull, was glassed around a piece of wood. I think it establishes that shape for the little keel that's on the bottom. I don't think it's structural. I think it was clear first. Kind of hard to tell what it was. About 2/3 of it stayed in place, and about a third of it broke when I was trying to get it up. So I'm not going to fight and get the rest of it out. I'm going to dry it up, or let it dry, and I'm going to fill the little voids with the resin and the fiberglass. And this will be the easiest stringer to set yet, because I'm just going to have a flat spot to put it on. So I'll be able to set the stringer all the way up to here, and then we will stop and glass them all in and put what plywood we can down. Won't be permanent because we'll have to pick it back up to put water tanks and stuff, but at least we'll have a flat spot to stand on. That'll be nice. This is the center stringer that I took out yesterday. It is it's sad that they did such a good job on fiberglass in the exterior boat and did such a crappy job on the stringers. This is a scupper hole, or a limber hole they cut. Didn't seal it. They bored holes, didn't seal them. It's just sad. The boat probably would still be in okay shape, even though there was not a lot of cross bracing. I don't know whether it's because people took them out over the years, or they just never put enough in. But, so that's our project today, is to fill the bottom, get it flat, and when the glue dries on that center stringer, I'll run it through the planer and get it flat on both sides, and we'll start fitting it up. Just finished running the center stringer through the planer, and it is a beast. It's very heavy. It's a full 2 inches thick and 14 inches wide at the widest part, and almost 17 feet long at the tip down here. On the other stringers, I've been marking them in the boat, taking them out, cutting them, and doing all the stuff outside the boat. But on this one, I think if I get it in the boat, I'm going to do everything in the boat. It's going to be too difficult getting it in and out. I got the middle stringer sitting in the boat. I got my straight edges front and back. In this instance, I got them sitting on 2.5 inch blocks because that's just what worked the best. I've got 2 straight edges, and I got an issue, and I've been having it, and I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. Thought I had enough board glued up that I could cut the stringer out of, but with the 2.5 inch blocks, I should be cutting 2.5 inches off the bottom, but up here it's 5 inches, and I'm not sure why. Kind of frustrating. But anyway, on these other two, I took them back out the boat, added onto the bottom. I had a similar deal, wasn't quite as bad. Glued them back up, ran them back through the planer. But this one I can't run through the planer anymore because it's almost 15 inches wide. I have a 15-inch planer. So what I'm going to do, I think, is just cut it at 5.5 inches from the floor. That will make it 2 inches, the top 2 inches too low. And at some time in the future, I'll just screw and glue 2 more inches to the top. The top is flat, so that's easier than trying to add on to the bottom. Getting it out of here, which is a beast because it's heavy, and running through the planer again. So a little setback, but we'll be all right. I'm going to scribe it. I'm going to cut it in the boat. So scribe the bottom, cut it, put it in place, and it fits good. It's an even 2.5 inches lower than what it needs to be. So I'm going to go ahead and route the edges round, cut the little weep holes or the limber holes or whatever you want to call them, and a fiberglass at the bottom, and put it in place. And sometime in the future, before we put the floor down, I'll bring it up to finished grade. A milestone today. The 5th center stringer is in place and caulked. 50% caulked. I found that if I try to caulk both sides at the same time, on the same time, I tend to push the first caulk out when I'm squeezing the second caulk in. So I've only caulked one side, every other side. It is 2.5 inches lower than the other ones, but not an issue. When it dries tomorrow, I'll get in here and screw down the glue and screw strip to bring it up to grade. Been looking at these engine room stringers, and I think they may be okay. It's hard to tell. When we get the engines out, I'm going to cut them down lower so the grade, the elevation matches this floor in here. They don't need to be 2 foot tall because they won't be holding the V8 engine anymore. They're going to be holding an empty room with a little generator in it. So I'll cut them down. We'll take a look, and maybe that'll be something I won't have to do. We will have to extend these 5 stringers up under this bulkhead into the front bedroom. Maybe challenging, but it may not be too bad. I know that the ones on the side, as soon as they go through the bulkhead, they kind of peter out because the curve of the hull comes up, so there's not much to them. The center one probably goes all the way. But we'll see. I didn't want to open that up earlier because we didn't have much left of the boat. I didn't want it to get all squashed out of shape, but right now it's getting pretty strong. So I guess that'll be this weekend's project. Put in my first pair of stiffeners. I don't really know what the term would be. They're almost like gussets. I put one on this side, one on the other side. And after I did that, I realized I probably should glass in the stringers to the hull first, so the edge of the string will be sealed. So I'm not going to do any more until we finish glassing. But that's the new one. It's made out of scraps from these stringers, laminated together. It's a little bit of a pain, but I get to use up all my material. I don't like to waste stuff. This is the original. This is the new one. I think it should be strong enough.